In example 4b, we are going to take another equation of a circle that is in general form and convert it to standard form so that we can identify the center and radius of the circle and ultimately graph the circle. So let's take a look at this new example. The equation we have is 2x squared plus 2y squared plus 12x minus 8y minus 6 is equal to 0. So that is clearly the general form of the equation of a circle. And we need to convert it to the standard form of the equation of a circle. If you scroll up to the top of the page, that's where I have the standard form of the equation of a circle written down. So we need to take the equation that we've been given and convert it to something that looks like this, okay? We learned in example 4a that the method of converting from general form to standard form is called completing the square. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to point out, there is a slight difference between the equation in part B and the equation that is in part A. So if you kind of compare the two, so take this equation and look at the original equation given in part A, the thing you need to notice is that in part A, the x squared and the y squared, they were multiplied by 1. And if you look in example B, in this equation, the x squared and the y squared both have a 2 in front of them, okay? So if you encounter an equation of a circle in general form and the number in front of x squared and y squared is not 1, you have to start this process by dividing off that number. If you don't do that, the whole method is not going to work out. You'll run into some kind of issue that you can't get past, some kind of weird looking error, and you're going to get stuck, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by dividing every single piece of this equation by 2, okay? So we're going to work with x squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 4y minus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, again, you have to do that. Okay, you have to divide off every single piece. You've got to divide by the number that's appearing before x squared and y squared. Okay, again, if you don't do that, you will run into some issues along the way when you're completing the square. Okay, all right, so going forward, when we actually complete the square, this is the version of the equation that we're going to work with, okay? So let's get started. Remember what the first step of this process is. You want to move the number over to the other side if you need to, and you also want to rearrange terms. You want the x pieces to be together and you want the y pieces together, okay? So once again, I'm going to color code here. All right, let's start with the x pieces. So I've got the x squared and a positive 6x. I'm going to go ahead and write those guys together next to each other. So I'm going to have x squared plus 6x. Okay, and then I've got the y squared and the minus 4y. I need to write those guys down next to each other, so I'll put them in red. So plus y squared minus 4y. Okay, and then our number here is minus 3. We need to move that over to the other side of the equal sign. Okay, sometimes you'll get an equation in general form and the number will already be moved over for you, and in that situation you wouldn't have to do anything. Okay, but here we do need to move the number over. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, since it's subtracted here, we're going to add 3 to both sides. Okay, so if we add 3 to both sides, this is going to turn into equals positive 3. Okay. All right, so once we have gathered the x terms together and we've gathered the y terms together and we've moved the constant or just the number over to the other side, we can start by completing the square. Okay, so let's do this in x first. Okay, so to complete the square in x, you are going to write down the x pieces exactly as they are. So we've got x squared plus 6x, and then you're going to add to this. Okay, when you complete the square, you're always adding. Okay, again, the rule is to take the number in front of x, which is 6, divide that number by 2, and square the result. Okay, and then this number, 6 divided by 2 squared, that was not there before. Okay, we've got to keep our equation balanced. Okay, so there's already a 3 on the right side of the equation. So to keep the equation balanced, we're also going to have to add this new piece. Okay, so 6 divided by 2, that result squared. Okay, so we have completed the square in x. Now we have to do it to y. Okay, so we're going to write exactly what we have for the y term. So we have plus y squared minus 4y. Okay, we complete the square in y. Always adding. Okay, take the number in front of y. The sign is disregarded. It's always going to be positive. Even though the 4 is negative, we're going to take positive 4, divide it by 2, and square the result. Okay, so again, you're taking the number in front of y, positive version. Okay, you don't have to worry about the sign because it's always going to be positive when you're completing the square. Okay, you're dividing by 2 and squaring the result. Okay, this term was not there before. Since we introduced it on the left side, we've got to add it to the right side as well. Okay, so there we go. We have completed the square in y as well. So now let's simplify and see what we have. Okay, so for the x's, we're going to have x squared plus 6x plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And then for the y's, we're going to have plus y squared minus 4y plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So then on the right side, we're going to get 3 plus, okay, we have that same piece that we added when we completed the square in x. So again, 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. And then we have to add the piece for y when we completed the square in y. So that's going to be 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify the number that is on the right. So I'm just going to rewrite this. So here's our x part, and then we have our y part. And then on the right side of the equal sign, we're going to simplify the number. 3 plus 9 is 12 plus 4 is 16. Okay. All right. So now we can start factoring. Okay. Again, if you scroll up, when you're trying to convert to standard form, remember this is standard form, you're going to have a quantity squared in x, quantity in x squared plus a quantity in y squared is equal to the radius squared. Okay, so this whole process of completing the square, okay, once we've gotten to this part, okay, the green thing should factor and the red thing should factor. Okay, so let's start with the green thing. Okay, we're going to try to factor it. And remember, there's a trick to this for factoring here. These should easily factor. Okay, completing the square, this whole process, it should be something easy to factor. Okay, so x squared plus 6x plus 9, we need to write it as something times something. Okay, so the x squared is going to break down into x times x, and then look at the number. The number is positive 9. It's going to break down into 3 times 3. The number should be a perfect square. Okay, 9 is a perfect square. 3 times 3 gives you 9. Okay, remember this second sign is always going to be positive. The sign that goes in the middle of these two guys is going to be the first sign. Okay, so both of these should be plus. If you multiply this out, if you FOIL it, box it, however you want to look at it, x plus 3 times x plus 3, I'll quickly FOIL it, x times x, and then plus 3x, plus 3x, plus 9. Okay, you simplify, you're going to get x squared plus, 6x plus 9. Okay, so you get what you started with. All right, so we know we have factored it correctly, and you should check yourself. Okay, notice what we are left with, x plus 3 times itself. Okay, if you multiply anything by itself, it's the same thing as squaring it. Okay, so it's starting to look like standard form. All right, so let's move on to the y squared minus 4y plus 4 in red. We need to factor that. Okay, so it is also going to break down into something times something, okay? So you look at the first piece, the y squared, that's going to break down into y and y times y gives you y squared, and then look at the number. It should be a perfect square. What times what gives you 4? What times itself? Well, 2. 2 times 2 gives you 4. Okay, so both of these are going to be 2. And then the second sign will always be positive. What's going to go in the middle is the first sign. Okay, so we're going to have minus and minus. You should always get the same factor times itself. If you don't, you've done something wrong. Okay, again, we can quickly FOIL this and check it. This is going to be y times y is y squared minus 2y minus 2y, and then negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Combine like terms, you get what you started with, which is y squared minus 4y plus 4. Okay, so we have factored correctly here. Okay, we have been left, like I said, with the same factor times itself. So y minus 2 times y minus 2 can also be written as y minus 2 squared. Okay, in standard form, you shall always have a plus in between the two sets of parentheses. Okay, if you scroll up, there's always going to be a plus sign in between these two sets of parentheses. Okay, so we got to keep our plus sign, and then on the right side of the equal sign, remember there is a 16. Okay, so we are done. Okay, this is the standard form. We've converted the general form over to the standard form, and now that it's in standard form, we can identify the center and the radius. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So for the center here, remember what we need to do. The center is going to be an ordered pair. We need to take the x quantity inside parentheses, which is x plus 3, set it to 0 and solve. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. We're going to get that the x coordinate of the center is negative 3. And then to get the y coordinate of the center, we need to take the quantity inside parentheses with the y. So the y minus 2, set it to 0 and solve. So add 2 to both sides. We're going to get y is 2. Okay, so the center is located at the point negative 3, positive 2. So that's going to be right here. And now we need to get the radius. Okay, remember how the standard form of the equation of a circle works. This point right here, this number right here, oops, let me try that again. This particular number right here on the right side of the equation, this is going to be the radius squared. Okay, so this 16 right here is the radius squared. Okay, so as far as the radius goes, we know that r squared is equal to 16. Okay, and so, you've got to take the square root of both sides. Radius cannot be negative, so r has to be 4 here. Okay, so we've got a center at negative 3, 2. We've got a radius of 4, so we can complete our drawing. We're going to go up to the center. Okay, we're going to move up 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the circle will go through this point, and then back to the center, move left, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then back to the center, move right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And back to the center, move down, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we can draw in our circle that goes through these 4 points. Okay, so let me get this drawn in here. Okay, of course you will be drawing it free-handed as best as you can. Okay, and that is it. Okay. All right, so make sure you practice a lot of these. Okay, I guarantee you I will ask you something like this on your exam.